live, I am. Let's just adjust that. Yes, for the second time today, you lucky, lucky people. Let me just... As usual, I've been rushing around trying to set up as the countdown's been going on, so my computer screen at the side of me here... Oh no, it is working. Except it seems to think we're on the closing titles, which is wrong. Oh, it says disconnected. Anyway, so... oh, where's my phone as well? There. So let's just check we've got... everything that we should have working on here. Sorry, I was making myself a coffee, literally, but I had to. I realised I had 6 minutes to make my coffee, and then I realised I hadn't ground any coffee, so I had to grind the coffee and make the coffee. But hey, you know. So Stream Manager. Let's send a test message into the chat. Lovely. Right. So yes. Earlier today, I signed off chapters 2, 3 and 4, very little needed doing to them. And then I read through chapter 5 with the intention of signing it off. But I found myself flagging. I'd done quite a lot at that point. So I decided to not do any more, at that point anyway, with the intention of potentially coming back to it later today, which I have, because I set myself a target of getting 2 chapters done today, and it's kind of looking like I'm going to get 4 done, which is lovely, which is good, because I'm definitely not going to be writing tomorrow. Now, the reason so when I signed off chapters 2, 3 and 4, hardly anything needed doing to them. It was like a couple of little words and bits and pieces from my notes needed changing, but the majority of it was the same. Whereas this chapter, quite a lot of differences. So I edited this one, put the differences in last night. I've read through it today on here, on the earlier session, on screen, but now here's my paper sign off. So, yeah. So the feedback about this one said that they thought Saywood accepted the mystical bollocks she was being told far too easily. I think you'll find that's no longer the case. So let me go into that view. Oh, I don't need to update the software. We shall make not make a start, but make a continuation. So, and again, as I've said before, I'll be reading off paper. You will only see it on the screen when I need to alter something. So let's see how this goes. Chapter 5, A Visitor. Saywood woke up and allowed herself a long and satisfying stretch. The events of the previous day returned to her after a few moments, and the smile that had played across her face dissolved into a frown. It was Saturday, so she did not have to be anywhere this morning, and neither did Rebecca. They were both due to do longer shifts at work this afternoon. Saywood was supposed to be at the supermarket from 1:30, and Rebecca was scheduled to start at the Viscount at 3. Bex was still going in for her shift, but Saywood had decided she was going to have a lazy day. Was going to have the lazy days the paramedics had recommended. Take the time off. Take the time off. That the paramedics had recommended. So Saywood woke up and allowed herself a long and satisfying stretch. The events of the previous day returned to her after a few moments, and the smile that had played across her face dissolved into a frown. It was Saturday, so she didn't have to be anywhere this morning, and neither did Rebecca. They were both due to do longer shifts at work this afternoon. Saywood was supposed to be at the supermarket from 1:30, and Rebecca was scheduled to start at the Viscount at 3. Bex was still going in for her shift, but Saywood decided that she was going to take the time off that the paramedics had recommended. Lose that. Saywood could hear Rebecca clattering around in the kitchen. When they first started living together in September, they had taken it in turns to make each other a cooked breakfast every Sunday. On one occasion, Saywood had cooked it on a Saturday morning instead, before they went to work. They both enjoyed it, and this became their normal Saturday pre-work routine. I'm just going to swap those two words around. Saywood could hear Rebecca clattering around in the kitchen. When they'd first started living together in September, they'd taken it in turns to make each other a cooked breakfast every Sunday. On one occasion, Saywood had cooked it on the Monday morning instead, before they went to work. They both enjoyed it, and this became their normal Saturday pre-work routine, at least for a few weeks until the realisation dawned on both of them that the relationship was not working in the same way. Just not working. Now they were living under the same roof. Lose the together. It's got really dark outside. So we could hear Rebecca clattering around in the kitchen. When they first started living together in September, they had taken it in turns to make each other a cooked breakfast every Sunday. On one occasion, Saywood had cooked it on the Saturday morning instead, before they went to work. They both enjoyed it, and this became their normal Saturday pre-work routine, at least for a few weeks until the realisation dawned. They both enjoyed it. This became their normal Saturday routine, at least for a few weeks until the realisation dawned on both of them that the relationship was not working now that they were living under the same roof. Much better. A few moments later, the noises ended, and Rebecca walked into the bedroom clad in her pyjamas, dressing gown, and carrying a tray which contained a large fried breakfast toast and a mug of tea. Saywood smiled and sat up. "Thank you," she said gratefully. Rebecca set the tray down on Saywood's knees and gave her a peck on the cheek. "We've been so shitty to each other recently that I forgot how nice things can be when we both make the effort." She took Saywood's hand and gave a watery smile. "I think I need to try harder." Saywood nodded. "We both do." I think, again in my head, I was going to read that as dialogues that, "Well, we both do." And I think that's better. Well, we both do. Well, we both do. Shame it took you being ill to make me, realise. Rebecca climbed into the bed next to Saywood and gave her a gentle sideways hug. "I'll phone you later when I get a break to make sure you're okay." She looked at the rather distinct bump on Saywood's forehead. "Does that still hurt?" Saywood nodded. "I have a rotten headache, yes." Rebecca pushed the napkin on the tray to one side, revealing a pack of paracetamol. "I've thought of everything," she said. Saywood pushed a couple of pills out of the blister pack and swallowed them with a small sip from the hot mug of tea. "So what are you going to do with your day?" asked Rebecca. Saywood picked up a cutlery and started on the breakfast. "I'm going to have a dressing gown and Netflix day," she said after a moment of consideration. "I've made you lunch as well," said Rebecca. "There are some sandwiches in the fridge." Saywood giggled. He must feel guilty about something. She waited for Rebecca to laugh as well, but she did not. "Bex?" Rebecca shook her head, and there were some tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry, I was going to tell you. It's nothing really bad." Saywood looked apprehensive and put a knife and fork down. "What?" "As I say, it's nothing terrible, but we haven't been happy recently. I met someone and we got on, like you and I did last year. We were due to meet up on Monday. I'm so sorry. Yesterday was so nice that I told him it wasn't happening." Now that's a change, because one of the feedbacks I got was drop it in earlier that Rebecca is interested in men as well as girls. And in the original version of that, there is no gender reference made to the date she's cancelled. That is good coffee. Damn fine cup of coffee. I just need a cherry pie to go with it. As I said, it's nothing really. It's nothing terrible. But we haven't been happy recently. I met someone we got on, like you and I did last year. We were due to meet up on Monday. I'm so sorry. Yesterday was so nice that I told him it wasn't happening. Saywood took a sip from the tea, then put the mug carefully back on the tray. "I'm sorry, Saywood. I don't know if I would have gone through. I don't know if I would have gone through with it." I don't know if I'm going to keep that. "I don't know if I would have gone through with it" bit, actually. That's better. "I'm sorry, Saywood." She tried to smile. "Yesterday reminded me of why I loved you." "Loved?" Rebecca shook her head. "Sorry, love you, present tense." Saywood gave a sad smile and pushed the tray slightly forward. "I'm not all that hungry now. Sorry." She fixed Rebecca with a cold stare. "Perhaps you should get on the phone and uncancel your man." Under normal circumstances, Rebecca would have argued back. However, yesterday had been such... Yeah, I think there's just a whole load of unnecessary stuff here. And just so lose that sentence and just go instead, comma. Under normal circumstances, Rebecca would have argued back. Instead, she composed herself and carefully lifted the tray. Do you want me to leave you the tea? No. Saywood would not make eye contact with her. Without another word, Rebecca left the room with the unfinished breakfast. Saywood rolled over to face the wall, so that when Rebecca, not if, came back into the room, she would not see that she was crying. Hey Siri, living room lamp. I'm going to do that page again because I've made quite a few changes. I've thought of everything she said. Saywood pushed a couple of pills out of the blister pack and swallowed them with a small sip from the hot mug of tea. So what are you going to do with your day? Asked Rebecca. Saywood picked up a cutlery and started on the breakfast. I'm going to have a dressing gown and Netflix day, she said after a moment of consideration. I've made you lunch as well, said Rebecca. There are some sandwiches in the fridge. Saywood giggled. You must feel guilty about something. She went for Rebecca to laugh as well, but she did not. Bex? Rebecca shook her head, and there were some tears in her eyes. I'm sorry, I was going to tell you. It's nothing really bad. Saywood looked apprehensive, but with her knife and fork down. What? As I say, it's nothing terrible. But we haven't been happy recently. I met someone and we got on, like you and I did last year. We were due to meet up on Monday. I'm so sorry. Yesterday was so nice that I told him it wasn't happening. Saywood took a sip from the tea, then put the mug carefully back on the tray. I'm sorry, Saywood. She tried to smile. Yesterday reminded me of why I loved you. Loved? Rebecca shook her head. Sorry, love, present tense. Saywood gave a sad smile and pushed the tray slightly forward. I'm not all that hungry now, sorry. She fixed Rebecca with a cold stare. Perhaps you could get on the phone and uncancel your man. Under normal circumstances, Rebecca would have argued back. Instead, she composed herself and carefully lifted the tray. Do you want me to leave you the tea? No. Saywood would not make eye contact with her. Without another word, Rebecca left the room with the unfinished breakfast. Saywood rolled over to face the wall, so that when Rebecca came back into the room, she would not see that she was crying. Saywood and Rebecca said very little to each other for the rest of the morning. Rebecca went out for lunch just after midday to get away from the flat. Before she went to work. What the Rebecca went out for lunch just after. Saywood and Rebecca said very little to each other for the rest of the morning. Rebecca went out for lunch just after midday to get away from the flat before she went to work. Once Rebecca had gone, Saywood got out of bed. She pulled on a pink dressing gown and moved to the living room, taking the duvet with her. She was hungry and reluctantly ate the sandwiches that Rebecca had left for her. Then she flicked through some images on her phone until she came to a picture of the pair of them that they both liked. She zoomed into Rebecca's face and looked sadly at her eyes and her smile. Until yesterday she'd assumed they were drifting apart, and then suddenly things were like they used to be. For one brief day, Saywood had thought they might be able to rescue the relationship. They had not been intimate in months. The last couple of nights had seen them cuddling, which had been lovely, but if it had not been for a full yesterday, who knew? Who knows? Who knew? Who knew whether? Start again. Where's the remotes? Oh, I always hide them. Is it under there? Oh yeah. Just losing bits of paper now. So let's do that again. Had not been intimate for months. The last couple of nights had seen them cuddling, which had been lovely. And had it not been for her fall yesterday, who knew where last night may have gone? But then today Rebecca had dropped a bombshell. Saywood had no idea if Rebecca had ever had any intention of telling her about the planned rendezvous. Had she not been caught out in the moment, she was a terrible liar at the best of times. But then she had cancelled the date, if that was even what it was. Was thinking about dating someone, and a man at that, any worse than assuming that the relationship was dead and buried? Saywood was not sure. She opened the backpack intending to put her books away when she found the necklace that she'd picked up in the charity shop. She pulled it out, then gasped. The strange voices that she'd been hearing recently were suddenly back. She shut her eyes and realised that she could hear speech from distinct individuals. She could not make out the detail of what they were saying, but this time there was enough clarity for her to count the voices. She dropped the necklace and they stopped. They did not gradually fade off as they had in the past. They just ended as though someone had ripped a pair of headphones off. Let me just update that. Say a pair of earbuds out. Just updating the reference. She peered down at the necklace, which... Oh, but when did earbuds launch? Good question, because this is set in 2018. (2018) wireless earbuds, that's what I'm looking for, so that's fine. She dropped a necklace and they stopped. They did not fade gradually as they had in the past. They just ended as someone had ripped a pair of earbuds out. She peered down at the necklace, which had fallen to the floor. She knelt and put her face close to it without actually touching it. Use the actually. It looked like a perfectly ordinary piece of stone with a natural hole roughly in the middle. She frowned, thinking that if someone walked in at this moment, she would look rather strange. She would look rather strange. She put her ear close to the object but could hear nothing. She carefully sat up so that she was on her knees in front of the necklace. With a slightly trembling hand, she touched the stone again. Let me do that paragraph again. She dropped the necklace and they stopped. They did not fade gradually as they had in the past. They just ended as though someone had ripped a pair of earbuds out. She peered down at the necklace, which had fallen on the floor. And maybe... type. She peered down at the necklace which had fallen to the floor, then knelt and put her face close to it without touching it. It looked like a perfectly ordinary piece of stone with a natural hole roughly in the middle. She found that if someone walked in at this moment, she would look rather strange. She put her ear close to the object, but could hear nothing. She carefully sat up so that she was on her knees in front of... the necklace. With a slightly trembling hand, she touched the stone again. So I'm just going to again combine those 10 sentences. So, she... So again, it looked like a perfectly ordinary piece of stone with a natural hole roughly in the middle. She frowned, thinking someone walked in the moment she would look rather strange. She put her ear close to the object, could hear nothing, so she carefully sat up so that she was on her knees in front of it. It looked like a perfectly ordinary piece of stone with a natural hole. Let's do the whole paragraph. She dropped the necklace and they stopped. They did not fade gradually as they had in the past. They just ended as someone ripped a pair of earbuds out. She peered down at the necklace which had fallen on the floor, then knelt and put her face close to it without touching it. It looked like a perfectly ordinary piece of stone with a natural hole roughly in the middle. She frowned, thinking if someone walked in at this moment, she would look rather strange. I'm going to lose that. That just doesn't need to be there, that she frowned sentence. Do the whole paragraph again. She dropped the necklace and they stopped. They did not fade gradually as they had in the past, but just ended as though someone had ripped a pair of earbuds out. Yeah. God, this is... She dropped the necklace and they stopped. They did not fade gradually as they had in the past. They just ended as someone had ripped out a pair of earbuds That's better. She peered down at the necklace, which had fallen to the floor, then knelt and put her face close to it without touching it. It looked like a perfectly ordinary piece of stone with a natural hole roughly in the middle. She put her ear close to the object but could hear nothing, so she carefully sat up so that she was on her knees in front of it. With a slightly trembling hand, she touched the stone again. Much better. Bloody hell, that was hard work. Given how many times I've done this, mind you, I've probably altered it as well. Once again, there were voices. Some of them were familiar. She swore she could hear the lady from 2 flats across deciding that she was about to tell off her kids. There's a much louder voice. Then a much louder voice cut in. Okay, it said. Let's lose the okay as well. Let's get this over with. She's by herself now. She's by herself. Let's lose the now. Her name is Sayward Amapofo. As Sayward snatched her hand away from the stone, there was a knock at the front door. She froze, wide-eyed with incomprehension. Paragraph again. Once again, there were voices. Some of them were familiar. She swore she could hear the lady from 2 flats across deciding that she was about to tell off her kids. Deciding that it was time to. Once again, there were voices. Some of them were familiar. She swore she could hear the lady from 2 flats across deciding it was time to tell off her kids. Then a much louder voice cut in. I'm here, it said. Let's get this over with. She's by herself. Her name is Sayward Amapofo. As Sayward snatched her hand away from the stone, there was a knock at the front door. She froze, wide-eyed with incomprehension. Sayward kicked the strange piece of jewellery under the sofa and rose to her feet. There was a pause and a second knock at the door. It was the only way out of the flat unless you included the bay doors out to the balcony, but as the flat was on the 4th floor, that was not an option unless she was desperate. She pushed her hand across the top of her hair, briefly enjoying the feel of the tight braiding. She had decided what she was going to do. She hasn't decided because she's questioning it again in a minute. So I'm just going to lose that. Sayward kicked the strange piece of jewellery under the sofa and rose to her feet. There was a pause and a second knock at the door. It was the only way out of the flat unless you included the bay doors out to the balcony, but as the flat was on the 4th floor, that was not an option unless she was desperate. She pushed her hand across the top of her hair, briefly enjoying the feel of the braiding. There was another loud, ominous knock. Sayward looked from the living room into the hallway. There appeared to be a solitary figure at the door, which was slightly less worrisome than two. Let's just lose that, which was slightly less worrisome. Sayward looked from the living room door into the hallway. There appeared to be a solitary figure at the door. Sayward took a deep breath. And that should be a she. She took a deep breath. Should she open the door? The decision was taken away from her. She heard a click as though the door had been unlocked, and then the figure pushed the door open. Standing there in the evening light was a short woman. Sayward allowed her eyes to adjust for a few moments, then realised that she recognised her. It was the lady from the supermarket, who looked up and gave a smile. Gave a smile? Smiled? I'm sorry to disturb you. I was worried you might still be unwell after you helped me yesterday. Sayward did not feel physically intimidated, so she held her ground. How do you know where I live? And what gives you the right to just walk in here? The old lady smiled reassuringly. It was simply to check on you. When you didn't answer the door, I was worried. May I come in? Sayward glared at her. Well, you already have, haven't you? I can go away again. Saywood stood framed at the entrance of the living room. She blinked a couple of times, her head racing. The lady's voice was the voice she'd heard moments ago when she was touching the stone. She frowned. How do you know my name? Because I made quite a few alterations to that page, I'm going to do them again. Do the page again. Once again there were voices. Some of them were familiar. She swore she could hear the lady from 2 flats across deciding it was time to tell off her kids. Then a much louder voice cut in. I'm here, it said. Let's get this over with. Let's get this over with. No, let's get this done. Started. Is a much... Because it maybe is the start of something, isn't it? We don't know at this point. But it is only chapter 5. Let's get this started. Okay. Once again, there were 2 voices. Once again they were voices. Some of them were familiar. She swore she could hear the lady from 2 flats across deciding that it was time to tell off her kids. Then a much louder voice cut in. I'm here, it said. Let's get this started. She's by herself. Her name is Saywood Amapofo. As Saywood snatched a hand away from the stone, there was a knock on the front door. She froze, wide-eyed with comprehension. Saywood kicked the strange piece of jewellery under the sofa and rose to her feet. There was a pause and a second knock at the door. It was the only way out of the flat unless you included the bay doors out to the balcony, but as the flat was on the 4th floor, that was not an option unless she was desperate. She pushed her hand across the top of her head, briefly enjoying the feel of the tight braiding. Oh, hello. Oh, this is perfect timing. We're literally getting to the bit that I've rewritten based on your feedback, actually. Yeah, I've got 4 chapters signed off today once I finish this one. There's another loud, ominous knock. Saywood looked from the living room into the hallway. There appeared to be a solitary figure at the door. She took a deep breath. Should she open the door? Should she open it? Should she open it? Should she open it? The decision was taken away from her. She heard a click as though the door had been unlocked, and then the figure pushed the door open. Standing there in the evening light was a short woman. Saywood allowed her eyes to adjust for a few seconds and then realised that she recognised her. It was the lady from the supermarket, who looked up and smiled. I'm sorry to disturb you. I was worried you might still be unwell after you helped me yesterday. Saywood did not feel physically intimidated, so she held her ground. How do you know where I live, and what gives you the right just to walk in here? The old lady smiled reassuringly. It was simply to check on you. When you didn't answer the door, I was worried. May I come in? Saywood glared at her. Well, you already have, haven't you? I can go away again. Saywood stood framed at the entrance of the living room, straight by the entrance. Framed. You get framed by something, not at something. So... Okay, that's better. Saywood stood framed by the entrance to the living room. She blinked a couple of times, her head racing. The lady's voice was the voice she'd heard moments ago when she was touching the stone. She frowned. How do you know my name? The old lady smiled. How do you know that I know your name? I haven't said it. I'm only here to offer you some help, Miss Amapofo. Saywood, said Saywood. I suppose you had better come and sit down. The old lady closed the front door behind her and followed Saywood into the living room. Saywood indicated the chair that was perpendicular to the sofa. Take a seat. The old lady did as she was told. Saywood sat at the farthest end of the sofa. Farthest or furthest? I'm going to say furthest. Saywood sat at the furthest end of the sofa. She noticed the leather cord from the necklace was sticking out from beneath it, so she covered it with a bunny-slippered foot. My name is Geraldine Watkins. You visited this and Tat yesterday. We identified you as someone with potential when you visited the shop. Potential? For what? The potential to make things happen using just the power of your mind. And this is the bit that's completely different. Saywood rolled her eyes. If you're going to talk total crap, you can clear off now. She stood and made for the door, but the old lady remained sitting in a chair. Go on, she said forcefully from the hall. Leave. Her visitor remained calm. You heard me say your name before I came in, she said. Yet I did not utter a word. Don't you want to know how that is possible? How that's possible? Let's change that to a that's. Her visitor remained calm. You heard me say your name before I came in, she said. Yet I did not utter a word. Don't you want to know how that's possible? I don't, snapped Saywood, because it isn't. The old lady shook her head ruefully. I can prove it. Come back in here, sit down, and take my hand. Saywood glared at her from the hallway. No, she said angrily. I asked you to leave. Of course, I could show you without making physical contact. It's just that it would hurt more. Would it really? Said Saywood sarcastically. Geraldine looked at her and made a point of closing her mouth. She blinked a couple of times, then the words, "Yes, dear, it would," exploded through Saywood's head as though she'd been standing right next to the speaker at a rock concert. Saywood physically recoiled and thought she was going to lose her balance. Panting, she dashed over to the chair she'd just vacated and fell heavily into it. "What the hell was that?" she demanded once she'd caught her breath. "This is all new, but it works fine," she demanded once she'd caught her breath. "I was just proving that you can use your mind in a different way to most people." So we'd realised that once again the old lady had not moved her lips. "And you're saying that I can do what you just did?" "I'm saying that you have the potential to, yes, if you wish." "How do you know?" Geraldine smiled. "When you purchased the necklace that you are trying to hide with your foot, it was in a display cabinet in our shop with 4 other items. They are all things that help us to amplify our abilities. When enough of them are put together," Saywood hung her head and finished the sentence, "they glow a bit. That is to the uninitiated. To us, they glow a lot. It can be quite painful. It happens when enough of these objects are close to each other." Saywood closed her eyes and opened them again. "Rebecca said the man in the shop put sunglasses on to open the cabinet." Geraldine nodded. "Yes." Saywood looked annoyed. "And then what? Someone followed me?" "Yes, I did. I didn't notice you. Well, not until last night at the shop." "You noticed me when I wanted you to," said Geraldine. "I'm sorry about scaring you. Physical contact is the only way that we can be sure that the person we're investigating has potential. Once we know, we then try to find out if we think they are the right sort of person. One of the reasons that we exist is to make sure that nobody abuses their abilities." "Who is this mythical we?" "I represent the Sutherland Institute." Again, that was a bit of feedback. It kind of didn't appear until halfway through the book. Saywood shook her head. "Never heard of them," although obviously she's going to Google them later. Saywood shook her head. "Never heard of them." She paused for a brief moment. "And what happens if you think I'm the wrong sort of person?" Geraldine looked directly at her and spent a few moments thinking about how to respond. "You will meet another of us. Someone who can remove your gift. It will not hurt much, and you will continue your life without ever really understanding what you had. Why are you here? To tell you that we exist. If you wish, we can help you refine your abilities. Or, once we've finished this conversation, I can walk away and you won't see me again. It is entirely your choice." Saywood shook her head wearily and closed her eyes. "My head hurts." Geraldine nodded. "And from before yesterday, I'll warrant." "That's normal, then." "It will pass in a few days." "A few days? Bloody hell, it's really painful. Paracetamol won't even touch it." "It's not caused by anything that a chemical can change. I can help." Saywood opened her eyes. "Can you?" "Yes, I can probably do something about that bump on your forehead as well." Saywood frowned. "Really?" Her voice was heavily laced with sarcasm. Geraldine stood up and touched her quickly and gently on the forehead. She said nothing, but the headache noticeably started to recede. Saywood touched her forehead, feeling the prominent bump. "The bump is still there." I'm going to say "it's still there," rather than the bump, just to remove the repetition of the bump. "It's still there." Geraldine sat down. "It will be gone in a couple of hours." Saywood sat staring at Geraldine sceptically. "So what now?" Geraldine picked up a strange bag. "That is entirely up to you. You can live your life how you wish. My brief contact with you suggests that your abilities will include access to and control of the minds of others. Something that we have to be very careful with because of how easily that can be used inappropriately. You have heard voices?" "Sometimes. I think it's the people in the neighbouring flats. This time they were quite loud and distinct." Geraldine nodded. Geraldine frowned. "Were you touching the necklace?" "Necklace?" "The one under your slipper." Slightly shamefacedly, Saywood reached down and picked up the necklace by the cord, careful not to touch the stone. Geraldine nodded. "Yes, that'll be why. You won't need the Prolato given time, although it will always help to enhance your ability. Eventually you'll be able to hear thoughts unaided when you choose to. Beyond that, you may be able to use your mind to encourage people to do things. We need to be sure that if you do, it will be for the right reasons. You will need to meet another of us." How will you know if I'll use these magic powers for the so-called right reasons?" asked Saywood grumpily. "I won't, but Isabel will," said Geraldine. "That is her role. Well, one of her roles. If she has any doubt, even a fraction of a percentage of a doubt, then we will be censoring your potential. That is what happens to the majority of the people that we find, sadly." Saywood thought for a moment, then looked up at Geraldine. "What happens after that?" "If we decide that you are suitable, we will let you set the agenda. We can guide you at your convenience. Next week, next year, whenever suits you. You can find us at any time." "How? With telepathy? Do I send an owl?" Saywood had come across as much more sarcastic than she'd intended and looked embarrassed when she realised that Geraldine had pulled a business card from her bag. A telephone call will be quite sufficient, dear, and if you lose the card, this and Tat, or whatever establishment is on that site in the future, can also always be used to contact us. Saywood took the card and nodded. I'm not sure what to say. I like my life as it is. I don't think I want any complications. That's fine. Most people decide to live out their lives with no involvement in anything larger. If you need us, though, we are here at any time. Saywood stood up. OK, thank you. Sorry, I never offered you a drink. Geraldine also stood. No need. I must be going. Thank you for listening to me. She walked over to the hall door. Take care of yourself, Saywood Amapofo. You are welcome to contact the Sutherland Institute at any time if you feel you need to. Geraldine looked serious for a moment. Just one more thing. Do not use your abilities any further until Isabel has assessed you. The more you use them, the more painful and distressing it will be for you if we have to remove them. She paused. In fact, it could kill you. With that, Geraldine left through the front door, closing it softly behind her. Saywood sat back down on the sofa, the necklace still hanging from her fingers. With disgust, she threw it into the corner of the room, covered her face with her hands, and let out a howl of frustration and rage. You probably don't remember... Sorry, I'm talking to the person who's watching that read the original. To anybody else that might be watching, I'm talking to the person who I know is watching that read the original version of that chapter, who appeared as Bow Street Society on the screen. Now, I guess you probably aren't close enough to it to be able to tell how different that was, but it really was. Yeah. Oh, I've got a little foxy thing that's waving or something. Yes. No, can't. No, I didn't think you would. But honestly, because your feedback was that she accepted the situation far too readily. And I feel now that she has just argued the toss a lot, which is what she does best. Always has been. So yeah, I'm happy with that. And that's chapter 5. So, I mean, I didn't have to change a huge amount, but there was one page that basically got deleted and substituted with something else, and then most of the rest of the stuff was adapted, and I changed her attitude and made her grumpy instead of attentive and all that. Oh, fantastic. Oh, short story. My God, we can't stop you. Can't stop you. Excellent. When will you be announcing it to the world? Obviously, it'll presumably be in the Gaslight Gazette, your newsletter. Right, I'm happy with that chapter. I really am. Right, let's get it Grammarlied up. Oh, so have you got a couple of new members then? Or have you got a new member? Yeah. Right, so let's now... If I have any sense, I didn't close Grammarly from last time. I didn't. Oh, aren't I good? Oh, okay. Fair enough. So general, neutral, tell a story, done. Okay. So what's the overall? 81%. Remove comma. Pyjamas? No, I'll spell it the right way, thank you. Why doesn't it like the word gown? Cancelled. No, but then I guess if you have I'm thinking more for the short stories. If you have a short story that has a skill you don't have, it wouldn't be inappropriate to introduce one in the short stories. Realised, no. She could hear speech from distinct individuals. No, so that's exactly what I want to say. Jewellery. Now, have I spelt that correct? Hey Siri, spell jewellery.
Jewellery. Jewellery.
So it's just another case of it being an American spelling. Okay. One thing you can see, I've edited these before, because even though I'm changing stuff, there's a lot less work. Except in this bit, which is one of the bits I've written recently. So suddenly there's loads. Yeah, I'll go with that. Yet. Yeah, say if it's book 9 or 10. Hey Siri, spell skeptically. Hey Siri, spell skeptically. Oh, it's going to show up on my screen and not voice it out. Oh, that's right anyway, so that's another American change, as is the neighbouring. Prolato, no, that's a word I made up. Well, it's sort of based on Latin for something, but it is a word I made up. Hey Siri, what does prolato mean in English?
I can't translate into English yet.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. So you are borrowing elements of my writing style then. Oh, Darth Goricorn. I remember 600 characters in a card game and making and writing a world around. Okay, that sounds quite complicated. Yeah, I mean, at that point, I think I'd be using a card index. Right, so that seems to be chapter 6 signed off. Let me just download the file. Let me just open it. Oh. That doesn't feel right. I've done something stupid with the formatting. There we go. Right. So there is chapter 5. So let me move that from the... So I've done 5 chapters in 2 days. Oh, hang on. I'm just going to read some of the comments. I have notebooks now. Well, so honestly, an NPC character made into a main character. Yeah, a pinch of it saves a writing corner, puts yourself into. Or just because they raise their head above the parapet and go, me, I'm interesting. That's happened to me a couple of times. Right, let's just drag that into the completed. Oops. Yay, only got 28 chapters to do. Right, so let me just pop it on that screen for a second. So edited 12.3.25 and Grammarly. So, first 5 chapters done. And I'm not going to do much more today. I kind of wanted to get that one signed off. What I might do is just do a single read through of chapter 6 on screen. Just for the hell of it, just for the heck of it. Right, chapter 6 of Vision. This is slightly longer, so I'm just going to go through this once. This isn't a sign off, this is just my first look. And I have a funny feeling, I've looked at this yesterday as well, but Rebecca stood outside the staff entrance to the Viscount, shivering in the cold and smoking a roll-up. She kept checking her phone, hoping that Saywood would send her a text, preferably one saying that all was forgiven, although that was not likely, although that was unlikely, would be better there, unlikely. She finished the cigarette and then walked back inside, and then walked back inside, then walked back inside. As she went through the kitchen, she saw that Larry was frying some chicken and chips. There was usually so little food served here that it was not worth hiring a chef, so either she or Larry did the honours, or very occasionally, if it got busy, Larry's wife, usually with exceedingly bad grace. Rebecca walked through the kitchen door and into the bar. She was unsure why Larry had not called her back from her break early. There was a queue of 4 people waiting for drinks. "About bleeding time," said the first customer. It was one of the customers from Thursday night, the one that brought his unimpressed wife with him. This time he was alone. "The usual, Jim?" she asked, having already reached for the pint glass. "Go on then," he said gruffly. She made her way through the rest of the queue until there was only one customer remaining. It was a familiar figure, wearing clothes that were altogether too classy for this place. It was a familiar figure wearing clothes altogether too classy for the Viscount. "Hello, Rebecca," he said with a smile. "Hello, Max the painter," she said, inwardly a little surprised and annoyed to see him. "Back so soon? I got a lot of work done on Thursday," he explained. It's a little louder in here on a Saturday," she said. As if to illustrate a point, Jim's friend let out some raucous laughter as one of their number sat down. "I'm sure it'll be fine," said Max. "So what can I get for you?" "Same as last time, please." Rebecca remembered exactly what he had ordered, but she bluffed her ignorance. "I don't recall, sorry." Max pointed at the optics behind her. "Double Talisker on the rocks," twice. "Oh yeah," feigned Rebecca. "Shall I charge you for both again?" "Please," said Max. He paid her, and she poured the first drink for him. He walked away with it and sat at the same table in the corner that he had last time. Once he was not looking, Rebecca rolled her eyes. Larry had delivered his culinary masterpiece to its eager recipient and was now back behind the bar. "Is that your pal from the other night?" asked Larry. "Are you generating me more regulars?" "Looks like it," Rebecca replied. "I'd give you a bonus if I could afford it," Larry said. Larry in my head is Les from the pub in the first few series of Men Behaving Badly, the really fat, scruffy guy. "I'll give you a bonus if I could afford it," Larry said. "Maybe you could wear a lower cut top." Rebecca gave him an evil look. "There's laws against that sort of thing now, Larry. Nothing bad about looking good for the opposite sex," said Larry grumpily, then went a bit red. "Sorry, no offence. How is your missus?" "Mad at me," said Rebecca. "My fault." "Been playing away from home?" "That's none of your bloody business, Larry," she snapped. All right, keep your hair on," he said. "I was just asking." Rebecca shook her head and then felt her phone vibrate to notify that she had received a text message. She pulled it eagerly from her pocket, hoping that it was from Saywood, but it was only her mother asking something about her younger brother's birthday. Disappointed, she thrust the phone back into her jeans. Other Saturday night regulars drifted in over the next couple of hours. A few people ordered food, so Rebecca ended up doing a stint in the kitchen over the fryer. Once she'd come back from delivering the items and collecting the used baskets, she rejoined Larry at the bar. "It's been quite busy tonight," Rebecca commented. "Yeah," grunted Larry, "and another new face too." He gestured towards a man sitting alone a couple of tables away from Max. He was in a pair of jeans and a sweatshirt and was drinking what looked like a spirit mixed with cola. Like Max, he did not seem to be interacting with anyone else in the pub. Max was sitting with a sketchbook in front of him, scribbling away with a pencil. He looked up at the bar and, realising that Rebecca was back, held up his empty whisky glass. Rebecca nodded and poured another double for him, adding some ice. Not bothering with the tray, she walked through the semi-crowded bar area and deposited the drink at his table. Max smiled. "Do you remember what I asked you on Thursday?" Rebecca nodded, now wishing that she'd sent Larry over with Mac's second drink. I do, she said, trying to look neither pleased nor disgusted. I just wanted to show that I was serious, he said, and handed the sketchbook. On it was a picture of Rebecca's head and shoulders drawn in pencil. It was an amazing likeness, and for a few moments she was impressed, but kept her face neutral. You've just done this? Yes, smiled Max. I don't know whether to be impressed or horrified, admitted Rebecca. I have to confess I was hoping for impressed. Oh, it's stunning, she said. Only thing is, you've been sitting all the way over here, so you haven't been able to see me properly tonight. She looked back down at the picture. You've got my mole, the tiny scar on my cheek. It's like you've memorised all the details of my face. Considering this is only the second time we've met, I find that a bit creepy. I am keen to paint you properly, said Max, in my studio. I just wanted to see what I can do. Imagine if I had paint and canvas at my disposal and not just a couple of old pencils. Rebecca shook her head. The answer was no. Still is. Don't bother me again. You can ask Larry if you want any more drinks. Looking slightly upset, Max put the sketch pad away into his bag. I am truly sorry. It was not my intention to offend or scare you. Please forgive me. With that, he opened his laptop and paid her no further attention. Frowning, Rebecca retreated to the bar. She stood next to Larry, and between them they surveyed the room. Are you okay? Asked Larry, gesturing towards Max. You need to serve him from now on, said Rebecca. He's done a drawing of me. It's the opposite of normal. Oh, said Larry with a smile. Is it any good? Too good, replied Rebecca. It's weirded me out, Larry. So like I said, if he wants anything else, you're serving him. All right then, Larry conceded. Rebecca scanned the people at the tables and her eyes met the other new person in the room just for a second. He looked away for a moment before she did. He looked away a moment before she did and then stood up, approaching her at the bar. They're all staring at me now, she muttered to herself gloomily before the man arrived. Can I have another brandy and coke, love? He asked. The evening wore on. More customers arrived, and in the end Larry had to creep upstairs and beg his wife to do some cooking, rather than the cooking. Oh, you can do if you want. Entirely up to you. It's optional. I mean, I'm mainly reading, but yes, I did mean to do that. I just switched across one. Yeah, it's a good thing I've got my editor live online with me, isn't it? The evening wore on. More customers arrived, and in the end Larry had to creep upstairs and beg his wife to do some cooking, which she did after a lengthy protest. The drinks were served quickly and in large volumes. Towards the end of the night, when finally trade started to ebb, Larry looked at the bar. I am. Larry stood at the end of the bar with a large grin on his face. Although it was not quite time to call last orders, Rebecca was starting to do the clearing so she could go home as quickly as possible once the final customer left. She'd still not heard from Saywood and wanted to get back, both to ensure that she was okay and to check that she still had a relationship to go home to. Larry was staring at the new customer. Watch him, he said quietly to Rebecca as she cleaned the bar. I could swear he has spent the whole night watching your artist friend. Rebecca glanced up, and indeed the man did seem to be taking regular discreet glances two tables across to where the artist was deep at work on his laptop. See what you mean, Rebecca said a few minutes later. Just as she did so, Max stood up and headed for the bar. Larry intercepted him and took his order. As he did so, Rebecca glanced across and saw the new customer beckon discreetly to her. I'll be right back, she said to Larry. She approached the table. Is everything all right, he asked. Can you pretend to clear the table, asked the man. I want to ask you what you know about the gentleman 2 tables across. Max, the artist. Yes, I need to talk to you about him, Rebecca, discreetly once the pub is closed. Can you talk to me outside? Rebecca rolled her eyes. Every single one. No, I can't meet you outside. Her voice was slightly raised. The man shook his head. Shh, not so loud. You don't need to be by yourself. Bring your boss, bring who you want. I just want to know what you know about him. Why? The man sipped his drink. I will explain outside. Please, it's important. Now go, he's coming back. I'll think about it, said Rebecca, running her cloth along the surface of the table before taking his empty glass and walking casually away. She made eye contact with Max as he returned to his table, but he was unusually stony-faced and did not smile. After last orders, both Max and the newcomer finished their drinks and left. Max departed a few minutes later than the tall man after glancing around and trying to catch Rebecca's eye. Once the final customer had gone and the front door was bolted, Larry took some bags of rubbish to throw into the bins in the backyard, then walked across to pull the gates closed. Before he did so, he looked into the street and noticed that someone who looked like Max was standing halfway between the gates and the customer entrance. He frowned and walked through to the rear door by the kitchen. Bex, he called softly. Can you come here a moment? There was a pause, then a loud, I'm busy! Larry shook his head and walked quickly through the kitchen and into the bar. Forget that. Follow me a moment. Rebecca frowned. What? Just be quiet and follow me. Annoyed but slightly curious, Rebecca followed Larry through the kitchen and into the yard. "Now be quiet," whispered Larry, "and take a peek outside, but stay this side of the gate. To the left, towards the saloon doors. What do you see?" Rebecca looked where she was told to. She could see Max standing there, his eyes searching around him. Her heart started to beat a little faster, and she returned to the yard. Larry closed the gates, locked them, and ushered Rebecca back into the kitchen, locking the door behind them. "Is that who I think it is?" Rebecca nodded. "Is he waiting for me?" "I don't know," said Larry. "But that was my first thought. Do you want me to call you a cab?" "I can't afford it." Larry shook his head. "I'm not a total git, you know. I want you home safe. I'm more than happy to pay for a cab." Rebecca smiled. "Thank you, but no thank you. I'm going to make a phone call. I might be able to use this to build a bridge." Saywood was sitting on the sofa, still in her dressing gown, having fallen asleep, when the phone rang. She opened her eyes and glared down at it. The display said that it was 11:15 and that Rebecca was calling. She contemplated ignoring it, but it was unusual for her to call at this time. She let the phone ring a couple more times, then swiped the screen to accept the call. "Yes," she said coldly. "Hi, how are you feeling?" she heard Rebecca ask. "I was asleep," said Saywood. "If you're feeling okay, is there any chance you can walk me home from work? There's this strange guy who's been hanging around for a couple of days. Last time he said he wanted to paint me, and today he did a pencil drawing of me. Larry says he's waiting outside. It's a bit scary, Say." Saywood replied immediately. "No worries, my headache is gone. Is Larry okay to let you wait inside?" "Yes," said Rebecca. "Thanks, Say. Larry says to call just before we get there, and he'll open the back gate. You know where that is?" "Yes," said Saywood, and ended the call. She ran to the bedroom and pulled on a pair of jeans, a t-shirt and a hoodie, and took the nearest coat. It was not until she had left the flat and was jogging down the flight of stairs that she realised it was the new black leather coat that Rebecca had bought for her. That was irritating. She'd been planning to give Rebecca a hard time on the walk back, and the choice of coat already undermined that. And it says rather. I'm going to change it to already because that sounds better. It was a cold February night, and within a few minutes of leaving the housing estate she wished that she'd put on a scarf as well. There were a handful of people walking home, presumably from other pubs, and a few of them were quite tipsy or outright drunk. One pair of guys asked her back to their place for coffee and became quite insistent when she said no, so she ran around the corner to get away from them. As she approached the pub, she noticed a tall man in the shadows of a disused doorway. She wondered if he was the person that Rebecca had been talking about. He was in the darkness, though, and probably not visible from the front of the Viscount. Remembering her instructions, she called Rebecca's phone. Rebecca answered quickly. "Hello?" "I'll be there in a few seconds, babe," said Saywood, immediately wishing she had not used the word babe as she was still feeling cross. "Larry is unlocking the gate now," said Rebecca. "Let yourself straight in." Saywood ended the call and hoped that Larry was literally unlocking the gate at this moment. She had made the phone call later than she intended due to being distracted by the man in the alcove. She passed the saloon door, and just to the right of it was another man, standing there as though he was waiting for someone. She walked past and glanced back. The man in the alcove was peering out, possibly at her, she was not sure. She looked away, focusing back on the gate, and as she did so she put her hand in a pocket and unconsciously gripped the stone necklace. She did not recall putting it in there, but she had no time to be surprised by its presence because she was suddenly assaulted by images in her head, accompanied by a deep male voice. The images were blurry but seemed to be of Rebecca, semi-clothed, to the point of view of a man with paint on his hands. He had one arm around her throat and was tearing at her lower clothes with the other. Rebecca's features kept shifting somewhat, but she looked terrified and was screaming and trying to fight back. Saywood saw Rebecca take a punch to the back of her head, whilst the man's voice was telling her that when he had finished with her, he had the perfect place to... I don't need that last bit. Saywood saw Rebecca take a punch to the back of her head, whilst the man's voice was telling her that when he'd finished with her, he had the perfect place to hide what was left of her. I mean, that's creepy, but I think it's already creepy enough, so we'll just go there. Rebecca's features kept shifting somewhat, but she looked terrified and was screaming and trying to fight back. The details of Rebecca's face and body were scarily accurate, and Saywood stumbled in shock, letting go of the stone. She almost shrieked, but had enough presence of mind to get to the gate, which mercifully opened as she twisted the handle. She almost fell into Larry, making him jump. "Where's Rebecca?" Saywood asked breathlessly. "Kitchen," said Larry. Saywood barged through the unlocked door and saw Rebecca. She rushed over to her and embraced her tightly. Rebecca almost fell backwards, but steadied herself with a hand on the kitchen table. "I take it I'm forgiven then," she said. Saywood looked at her, pleased to see that she was unhurt and smiling. "The man outside," she said breathlessly. "Well, one of them." "Them?" asked Larry. "There's two," Saywood said, rushing her words. "Two?" asked Larry and Rebecca practically simultaneously. "Yeah." "You're shaking," said Rebecca in disbelief. Larry stepped into the bar and came back with a tumbler containing an orange-brown liquid. "Brandy," he said, handing it to Saywood. "Looks like you need it, girl." Saywood took it from him, had a sip, and enjoyed the fiery sensation as it went down her throat. "Larry, that's not a brandy glass," scolded Rebecca. Saywood smiled despite herself. "Two men," she continued after a few moments. "One in an alcove opposite. Tall jeans and a coat. The other by the main door, medium height, well dressed. I can't explain how I know at this moment, but one of them means to hurt you, Bex. They sound like our new customers, said Larry. Max by the doors and the other guy in the alcove. I still reckon the new one was watching Max for some reason. He was, agreed Rebecca. He wanted to talk to me after we closed. About Max. Who's Max? Asked Saywood. The one I told you about who wants to paint me. The guy by the saloon entrance. Saywood took another sip from the brandy. The one who wants to paint you. He must be the one. An image from her vision or premonition or whatever it was flashed through her mind. He had paint on his hands and one arm around her throat. Saywood put the glass down. Is he still there? Larry looked a little shaken. I don't know. Do you want me to call the police? Saywood shook her head. No. Can you check if he's still there? I can, but it won't prove anything, said Larry. He could be right round the corner. True, said Saywood. She could touch the stone again. The thoughts and images were very strong when he'd been close. If she could sense him. Let's just reword that. True, said Saywood. She could touch the stone again. The thoughts and images were very strong when he'd been close. So if she could sense him still with the help of the stone, then the chances were that he was still nearby. She put her hand towards her pocket but did not immediately touch it, remembering Geraldine's warning. We'll go and check then, she barked at Larry, who immediately vanished through the kitchen door. They both heard him open the gate, close it again, and come back in. He's not there, Larry confirmed. OK then, Saywood breathed out. She moved her hand to the bottom of her pocket and gripped the stone. All at once more voices filled her head. Mercifully there were no pictures this time. One voice was Rebecca, who was thinking about how great Saywood looked in a new coat. Another was Larry, obsessing about watching the pair of them kiss. She looked at him with pity, but there was another voice, an angry voice. Where is she? Where the hell is she? Saywood let go of the stone again. There's someone still out there, she said. How do you know? Asked Rebecca. I'll explain when we get home, said Saywood. I don't think either of us should be outside now. Larry, can you arrange a taxi? Well, I did offer earlier, grumbled Larry, walking over to the telephone on the counter below the optics. He offered you a taxi? Asked Saywood sharply, looking at Rebecca. Yeah, said Rebecca with a half smile. I'm sorry. I thought you coming to walk me home would give us a chance to talk. Larry put the phone down. He'll be here in 5. I've asked him to come to the flat entrance round the side. Thank you, said Rebecca. He's a mate, said Larry. I'll pick up the tab. Just get home safe. I'm going to lose that. There was a sudden loud banging at the saloon entrance. Larry ran through to the bar and looked at the glass doors. He could see a man silhouetted in the glow from the streetlights outside. I think it's the guy who was watching Max, he hissed back at them. What do you want me to do? Don't answer it, said Rebecca. Saywood looked over at her. Rebecca was usually unflappable, but right now she looked extremely nervous. Larry walked up to the door. Piss off, mate, he yelled. We're closed. There was another very loud knock. I need to talk to Rebecca. It's important. Saywood recognised it as the voice in her head from a few moments ago, and now realised that it was not the same as the voice of Rebecca's assailant from her vision. She's gone home, shouted Larry. Now clear off or I'll call the law. That's the man who wanted to talk to me about Max, whispered Rebecca. Saywood nodded. I don't think he's the one that meant you harm. How do you know? Asked Rebecca. I'll explain when we get home, replied Saywood. Larry stepped back into the kitchen. I think he's gone. Come on, through to the flat. He led them out of the kitchen through a door marked private and into a small cloakroom. He locked the door behind him. There was a flight of steps leading up to the flat, and opposite that, an external door. He heard the sound of a car horn and unlocked the door. He peered out, then smiled. It's the cab. He walked out, spoke to the driver, then came back inside. One of you go in the passenger door, one of you get in the back. Text me to let me know you're home safe, OK? Thanks, Larry, said Rebecca. Yeah, thanks, Larry, said Saywood sarcastically. I don't know how we'll ever repay you. Oh, wait. She turned round and kissed Rebecca deeply and passionately before Larry's astonished eyes. A kiss that was deliberate and way too long. That do for you, she said with a glint in her eye, before dragging a surprised and grinning Rebecca out from the flat and towards the car. In another car, parked a few metres away, a pair of eyes watched Saywood and Rebecca get into the taxi, which quickly pulled away. Starting the motor, Nathan Walsh released the handbrake and accelerated carefully after them. I believe you would then go dun dun dun. Maybe. Right, that'll do me for tonight. This was never going to be a long session because I just wanted to get chapter 5 signed off. I'm not probably going to get a chance to do this tomorrow because I'm visiting a friend in that London. I'm probably going to be back quite late. I think I'm leaving 8 a.m. and I'll probably be back 8 p.m. or something like that. It's going to be late, so I might do something, but I might not. I shall, hopefully. Hopefully I'll do some writing tomorrow. If not, that's a cracking start. So I have signed off 5 chapters in 2 days, and realistically one of them was yesterday, 4 of them were today. Chapter 6 is probably, I'm in UCBC tomorrow, being interviewed at 7:30 if you're back. UCBC, what's that? Oh, UKCB. Oh, okay, yes. Yeah, if I'm not driving, I will make a point of watching that UK Crime Book Club. I realised what it was eventually. Yeah. So, but no, this is there's a side with me that would really is now thinking if I worked hard, I could get this signed off before I go back to work, which would just be wonderful. And again, I'm not going to set myself that as a target. My target's fairly loose this month. My target was basically to finish English Hikikomori and get this started. Well, technically I've already done that, but it's only the 12th. So, right. Should I record the podcast now? Yes, let's do that too. So, software. Do, 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 do. Why can't I see the software? Because I'm looking for the wrong piece of software. There we go. So it's Wednesday the 12th. Hello, it's Wednesday the 12th of March 2025 and you are listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer. And the first thing I want to say is, aren't we writers a fickle bunch? Because for the last 2 years practically, I've been working on my book Empress of the Trees. I've basically, since this podcast started, I've edited a ton of it and written about 95,000 words of it. And all the way through that, I was like, these characters are great. I love them so much. I'm really not looking forward to not spending these time with these characters. I'll never write any characters better than this. And of course, 2 days ago, I started work on Still Life. It's the 5th draft. You know, it's not a new project by any means. In fact, I started it 1 year after Empress of the Trees. However, I have not touched it for about 2 years. And I started reading thinking, oh, these characters are really great. Oh, I really like these characters. Oh, I'll never write characters as good as these characters. It's pathetic, isn't it? You just switch allegiances just like that. So yes, I am editing Still Life, and I kind of talked about Still Life yesterday without telling you what it was. So Still Life is a story I started writing in 2019. I actually wrote the first draft fairly quickly, but then it's taken me an age to edit it. But yeah, so it's a story about an immortal artist who traps mainly women, but not exclusively women, in paintings. And he has the ability to control people's minds. He has the ability to put images in people's heads. And my main protagonist of the story, Saywood, is someone he takes an interest in. And if you've been listening to the live stream, I've just read out chapter 6, you will see that he kind of came to Saywood through showing an interest in her other half, Rebecca. And yeah, I don't want to say, oh, I'd forgotten how well written this was, because that's a really big-headed thing for anyone to say. But I had forgotten quite how engaging I found the characters in this story. You know what? I'd actually love to do a crossover where Saywood and Ronnie meet each other. Saywood from Still Life and Ronnie from Empress of the Trees, because they're both so bloody full of themselves. I really don't know who would come out on top, although technically Saywood has the ability to melt Ronnie's brain with a single thought. So possibly Saywood, thinking about it. So yesterday I had just edited one chapter, the first chapter. Today my goal was to try and get another 2 chapters signed off. Well, I've done a bit better than that, actually. So last night, because I don't do everything online, and I decided just to have a glance through some of the chapters last night, and I actually ended up reading 4 chapters last night. Now, chapters 2, 3 and 4 needed almost no alterations. I think, so one of the bits of feedback was to drop in that Rebecca likes, you know, although she's in a relationship with a woman as well, to drop in the fact that she either likes guys or has been in relationships with guys before. And there was a really good opportunity to do that just by effectively changing one sentence, because it turns out that she was considering going out on a date with someone other than Saywood because of the way their relationship had deteriorated. Now, in the original version, I don't refer to the gender of this person, but I just say that it's a guy in this, and that does that little bit of groundwork, and I can probably drop it in one more time, possibly. But that was the only thing I really changed in chapters 2, 3, and 4. So, yeah, that was very easy. And then I came to chapter 5. Now, chapter 5 is when Geraldine Watkins of the Sutherland Institute, who are the people that regulate people with abilities. So think about her as like a Professor Xavier, only with hair and can walk. And isn't played by Patrick Stewart. No, nothing like that at all. But yeah, so I'm just gone off topic now. I can't remember what I was saying. Anyway, so Geraldine is the person that Saywood meets, and Saywood in the original version, the feedback was that, and on reflection, I absolutely agreed with it. The feedback was that she's suddenly been introduced to this mad world where people can use their minds to do stuff, and she just sort of accepts it. And so in the new version, she's very sceptical, quite rude, and doesn't accept it. So that was a big change. In fact, I think the two biggest changes I needed to make in the entire book, looking at the feedback I was given, was that moment, and also the suggestion that Alfie and Molly should be married at the start of the book rather than just engaged. And I've made both of those alterations now. As I say, the way I'm going to continue this is I'm going to read a chapter at a time. Each time I read the chapter, I will then have a quick look at my checklist of things I need to look out for to make sure that there's nothing in there that I might need to alter. And if it doesn't, I should then read the next one. So last night I read 4 chapters, and then today I signed them all off sequentially. It's not quite, because it's not like I'm writing the first draft of these. This is the 5th draft, and it's quite interesting putting them through Grammarly. Most of the errors it's coming up with is either punctuation in the new bits, because my punctuation is terrible, or just trying to change the spelling from the English way to the American way, because in Grammarly you used to be able to tell it you were writing in English, but now it seems to default on American English, and basically wants to take out a lot of U's and replace S's with Z's. So yes, I'm done today. I've done 5 chapters now. There's 28 to go. I'm not going to set myself a goal of finishing. I'm going faster than I thought. Having said that, I'm busy tomorrow and the next day, so I'm probably not going to get much done over the next 2 days. But I would really like to get this done by the end of this month. I've got another, let me have a look. I've got another, can't do maths in my head, 11 days of not working, 2 of which, unfortunately, I'm quite busy. But if I can do 4 chapters a day on the other 9 days, I can still finish it before I go back to work. Now, as I said, I'm not going to force myself to do that, but I think I am going to alter my target, actually thinking about it, and say I need to get this draft signed off by the end of the month. Will I succeed? Well, there's only one way to find out. Well, you could listen on the last day of the month and find out, but that would be anticlimactic. It would be better to listen every day and find out, wouldn't it? Yes, it would. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. One of the things I have promised myself is that I will try and get a few more people to listen to this. So if you are listening to this, if you could share it in some way on social media, that would be bloody lovely. I don't mind if it's on Spotify, I don't mind if it's on Apple Music, I don't mind if it's on YouTube, but I would absolutely love to get a few more people listening and interacting with me on this. It is doing wonders for my writing. As I say, this year, since January, I've been more productive than I have been for a very, very long time. Anyway, I am going to stop. Thank you for listening. Take care, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Bloody hell, I can waffle. Right, let's just add the opening and closing music to that. Do-do-do, do-do-do, do-do-do. Which Prime Minister am I impersonating by going do-do-do? Do-do-do. Do-do-do. Right, let's to make sure I've got the timings of this correct. On social media, I may see you there. Hello, it's Wednesday the 12th. Oh. Let's not cock it up. Let's do that again. Hello, it's Wednesday the 12th of March. Right, that's perfect for the beginning. Let's just drag the end credits to the end. Make sure those line up properly. which it looks like they almost do. Let me just play it to make sure. January, I've been more productive than I have been for a very, very long time. Anyway, I am going to stop. Thank you for listening. Take care, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye. You have been listening to the Diary of... File, export as MP3. File name is 120325. Save. I'm just going to schedule it. Well, not schedule it. Drag it into my podcast audio file, which then means I should be able to see it on my telephone. So, creators. So this will be show 64. Blimey. Oh, I hate it when it doesn't upload. I did this the other day. I'm just going to crash out of this and start again. Oh, there it is. Racing ahead and a new goal. 12th March 2025. You can still see me? Yeah, that's fine. I'm just uploading the podcast. I haven't finished yet. Why? Do you want me to disappear? No. I'm just uploading the podcast, in which I race ahead with my editing on still life and set myself a new target for the end of the month! Exclamation mark. Capital. In which I race ahead with my editing on still life and set myself a new target for the end of the month. Right, so that's uploading incredibly slowly, but I shall let it do its thing. Season 2, episode 64. New artwork. I don't know why this episode is taking so long to upload. Never mind. I always, sometimes if I do the podcast on here, I tend to upload it and get it done. But I'm about to have the technical issue of stopping, if that's any help. So that's it. I'm done for today. Very pleased with what I've achieved. I will probably read through some more chapters tonight without doing it online. And then if I do get to do anything tomorrow, at least all I'll have to do is the sign off. It'd be nice if I could get at least 2 chapters done tomorrow, but I am ahead, so it doesn't matter. Right, the podcast will appear when it deigns to upload. For some reason, normally it uploads in a few seconds. It's only like a 7 megabyte file. But, yes, I shall do my best. We're going to, I can't remember where it is. It's somewhere I chose as well. It's a National Trust place, and then going for some lunch. Right. Podcast will be up in a few minutes. Thank you for watching. Thank you for Itanchi. No, it wasn't Itanchi. Who was it that I interacted with this time? It was Itanchi and Darth Goracorn, both of whom... Oh no, Itanchi was on the last session. Sorry, this is my second session today. Confusing myself. Yes, so I shall be back tomorrow. Hopefully, if not the day after, maybe, because I'm going out that day as well. If not, definitely Saturday. Obviously, I'll be on the podcast anyway, but you might catch me on here. You might not. Take care. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.